He felt the wall breathe when the hammer hit. Dust rose. Something thudded inside the concrete. David paused. The foreman shouted. He swung again. A slit opened like a mouth holding secrets. His hands trembled. He reached in. Bags, not one. Many. Old canvas, tight knots, heavy like sin. "Hey, you okay?" the female laborer asked, passing him her water. He swallowed. "I think I just found a life." Minutes earlier, he'd stood outside a magistrate court, paper still warm, while Amaka walked past him like a stranger. "It's over," she had said. Her boss waited in a black SUV, eyes on his phone. Rain began, thin as needles. David said nothing. He had said too much for years, about dreams, patience, school fees, love that costs. Now the mansion groaned, and the room smelled of old money and older silence. He remembered how he held two jobs, how she wore the graduation gown he paid for. Betrayal stung. But something else stirred, destiny knocking from inside a wall. And that's where his story truly began. Before we dive deeper, if you are listening to this, I want to prove my mom wrong. She said I can't hit 1,000 subscribers, and my friend said that I'm wasting my time, so please subscribe. Well, let's continue. The sun was already cruel by 10 a.m., but David didn't mind. Sweat hid tears better than shame ever could. He swung his hammer against the cracked mansion wall with the kind of anger that builds over years, when love turns into mockery, when every sacrifice becomes a joke to the person you made it for. 3 months ago, Amaka had stood in their living room, suitcase in hand, saying the words he'd always feared. "You can't give me the life I deserve, David. I'm done struggling." He had watched her walk away in the same heels he once saved half a month's salary to buy. She didn't look back, and maybe that was what hurt the most, that the woman who once prayed with him before interviews now prayed for his failure in secret. Now, in the ruins of this old mansion, his pain became rhythm. Bang, bang, bang. Each hit against the wall echoed his heartbeat, steady, defiant, wounded. Then came the sound that didn't belong, a hollow thud. He froze. "Hold on," he muttered. He struck again, slower this time. The plaster crumbled away, revealing a small cavity. Something wrapped in canvas was stuffed deep inside. His pulse raced. "Hey, Bissy," he called to the female worker beside him. "Bring that torch." Bissy bent beside him, her palms rough but kind. She shone the light in. "What's that?" He reached in and pulled out one bag, then another, then a third. Each was tied with a faded rope. When the first knot came loose, stacks of old currency spilled into his lap. Bundles of naira wrapped in brittle plastic. For a moment he couldn't breathe. His mind ran wild. Fear, disbelief, temptation. Bissy covered her mouth. "David, this is—" "Keep quiet," he whispered sharply. "Please." The foreman's footsteps approached, boots scraping the floor. David quickly pushed the bags back into the hollow and plastered debris over it. His hands trembled, but his face stayed blank. All day his mind roared louder than the machines. Was this a test from God or a setup from fate? That night, while others shared jokes under a lantern, David sat alone. He thought of the years he carried Amaka's dreams like a backpack full of bricks, how he worked double shifts to pay her tuition, how she called him my hero before success turned her heart cold. Now he stared at the stars, whispering to the night, "If this is my miracle, I won't waste it." 2 days later, he returned before sunrise with an empty backpack. By noon, the wall was bare, and David was gone. He didn't tell a soul. He bought new clothes, a cheap phone, and registered a business name that same week, Davenex Oil Gas. The irony made him smile. The poor man who used to clean gas stations now owned one, at least on paper. And that was the first step. The money wasn't cursed. It was calling. Because sometimes destiny hides in the walls we've been forced to break. Months passed like whispers, but David moved like thunder. The man who once begged for bus fare now drove himself to meetings in borrowed suits and borrowed confidence. Every night he sat in front of his small desk, studying oil distribution contracts from the internet cafes he used to mop for extra pay. He started small, renting tankers, supplying local filling stations. Then one deal became two. One station turned into four. People began calling him Oga Davenex, not knowing his foundation was built from dust, heartbreak, and concrete walls hiding money that was never meant to be found. Still, he didn't lose himself. He kept a quiet office at the edge of town, where Bissy, the same laborer who once shared her food, worked as his personal assistant. Her laughter filled the space Amaka had burned down. "Sir," she teased one morning, "you still don't smile? Even with all this success?" David chuckled softly. "Smiling too much makes people think you've forgotten pain." He hadn't, because pain had built him, and pain had a name: Amaka. Somewhere across town, Amaka sat in a high-rise office, fingers painted red, voice sharp as glass. She had become everything she wanted: stylish, confident, desired. Her boss, Mr. Aide, treated her like a trophy, but trophies don't know freedom. They just shine where they're placed. Yet deep down, she felt something missing. Every time her paycheck hit, she remembered the man who once gave her his last note just so she could eat before exams. When news broke of a rising oil magnate named David Nukeji, founder of Davenex, her stomach dropped. The photo in the business magazine nearly made her drop her glass. He wasn't the man she divorced. He was unrecognizable. Gray suit, calm eyes, confidence carved from storms. "Is that your ex?" her friend asked during lunch. Maka tried to laugh. He must have copied his name from someone else. But that night, she scrolled through his company's Instagram page, fingers shaking. Every photo looked like an alternate timeline, one where she had stayed. Meanwhile, David's company grew unstoppable. His story inspired tabloids, his name whispered in corridors of wealth. He didn't chase recognition, it found him. And when people asked about his sudden rise, he simply said, "God remembers those who keep working when no one claps." Still, fate wasn't done stitching irony. Months later, Davenex won a massive federal contract, the same one Amaka's company was competing for. Her boss, desperate to secure the deal, ordered her to attend the presentation dinner herself. "Use your charm," he said coldly. She smiled on the outside, but inside she was breaking. The night of the dinner, the hall shimmered with chandeliers and quiet power. Politicians, tycoons, governors, the air smelled of money and expensive perfume. Amaka walked in wearing gold silk, her heart drumming louder than the violins. Then she saw him, David, standing at the center of it all, shaking hands with men she had only seen on TV. The same man who once begged her not to leave was now the one they all wanted to meet. He turned. Their eyes met. The room disappeared. Amaka's breath hitched. He didn't look angry. He didn't even look proud. He just looked at peace. "What would you do?" the narrator's voice asked softly. "If the person you once looked down on became everything you prayed for?" "Well, let's continue." The dinner hadn't even started, and Amaka already knew. Fate was about to serve her cold regret in crystal glasses. The chandeliers glittered like diamonds stolen from the stars. Amaka's knees trembled as she clutched her wine glass, pretending to be fine. Her boss, Mr. Aide, leaned close and whispered, "That's the man we're meeting tonight. David Nukeji, the Davenex CEO. Be sharp. We need his signature." Her breath caught. Signature? The man she once mocked for dreaming too big now held the pen that could determine her future. When David finally approached their table, the atmosphere shifted. Conversation slowed, eyes followed him, respect trailed behind like a shadow. He stopped right before her, offering a polite smile that cut deeper than any insult. "Good evening." His voice was calm, measured, but rich with unspoken history. Amaka's voice cracked. "David, Mrs. Amaka Ade?" he said, pretending to check her name tag. "It's been a while. Congratulations on everything." Her boss stood, grinning. "Ah, so you two already know each other?" David's eyes flicked toward him, still composed. "Yes, she used to be someone I once prayed for. Now she's someone I pray for." The words landed heavy. The entire table went quiet. He sat down gracefully, as if he had rehearsed forgiveness. The man who once begged her to believe in him now had governors waiting for his handshake. Amaka could barely swallow. Every smile he gave others stabbed at her like a reminder of what she'd thrown away. Dinner rolled on. Cameras flashed. Toasts were made. David gave a short speech about resilience and grace. "Sometimes," he said, "life breaks us not to destroy us, but to show us what was hidden inside the cracks." Applause filled the hall. Amaka's eyes burned. She saw Bissy by his side, elegant in a navy gown, laughing softly whenever David leaned close. Her heart twisted. The same woman who once shared laborer food with him now stood as his trusted confidant. And more. After the event, as guests dispersed, Amaka waited outside the hall, hands trembling. She didn't care about her boss or the deal anymore. She just needed one more moment. When David finally walked out, she stepped forward. David, please, can we talk? He paused, eyes soft but distant. Talk about what? About us, she whispered. I made mistakes. I was blind. He sighed, looking at the night sky. You weren't blind, Amaka. You just had different eyes then. Eyes that couldn't see worth without wealth. Tears slipped down her face. I still think about what we had. He smiled faintly. So do I. But I think about what it taught me, not what it cost me. She reached for his hand. Can we start over? He gently pulled away. You already started over, with someone else. And I did too, with peace. A black car pulled up. The driver opened the door. David turned to her one last time. Amaka, I'll always take care of our daughter. She deserves the best of both of us. But some doors, when closed, are meant to keep the peace inside. Then he stepped into the car. The door shut. Amaka stood frozen, mascara streaking, watching his taillights fade into the dark, like hope driving away. And in that moment, she realized, money can rebuild walls, but it can't rebuild trust. What would you do, the narrator whispers, if the person you left behind became the proof that patience was worth it? Well, let's move on. Because that night, Amaka didn't just lose a man. She lost the version of herself he once believed in. When morning came, the city moved on. But two hearts didn't. David sat by his window, sunlight glinting off the skyline he once admired from the ground. He thought of Amaka, not with anger anymore, but with gratitude. Her leaving had forced him to meet himself, the version God had been waiting for him to become. He whispered, maybe sometimes heartbreak isn't punishment. Maybe it's preparation. Far across town, Amaka watched her daughter sleep. On the table lay a scholarship envelope from Davenex Foundation, signed personally by David. She broke down, realizing he had given their child the life she thought only wealth could bring. Yet what hurt most was how gently he gave what she had once demanded with pride. In the quiet, she finally understood. The real treasure wasn't the money hidden in a wall. It was the heart that kept giving even after being broken. Every loss has a lesson. Every pain has a purpose. And sometimes God hides blessings inside the very walls built to test our faith. So when life collapses, don't curse the rubble. Dig through it. Your miracle might just be buried underneath. Moral lesson: true wealth is not found in what you uncover, but in what you become after loss. Patience, faith, and kindness can rebuild anything that betrayal tries to destroy. If this story touched you, like this video, subscribe to King's Folklore, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters.